Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Diablo build guide. This right here, this is actually just something that I've kind of stumbled upon because I've been in the process of building all sorts of different things in this game because I enjoy playing a lot of games like this, ARPGs and such like this. But this right here is kind of a build that I've been playing on my rogue, and it's very not much like a lot of the other rogues that I've been seeing around. A lot of the different items that I'm using aren't really required, and I figured that if you're just kind of just getting started out, or if you were wanting to find some sort of rogue that is not the meta build, but just something that is very fun, very tanky, very good for solo play, especially. And that's really my where I come from, is I do a lot of solo aspects of games, and so I mean I do play with a lot of people quite a bit of time, and it does work really well in a group environment, but also in a solo environment it works really well. All right, so let's go with the build. For the most part, well, first off, for specialization, I'm going preparation. I'm just going preparation because I like it, so where every 100 energy, it lowers your ultimate skill, because I just like to have the ultimate skill available when I need it. It's not really a requirement for the build. It just helps with a little bit of crowd control and a little bit of that oh crap button. Let's get this elite dead as quick as possible. Yeah, that's really all the ultimate does. It's not really a requirement for your DPS, and that's one of the main things that I like about this build. It is a very tanky build, and there's a lot of survivability into it. Now I am going with the puncture, just the 1/1 over here, over to fundamental puncture, just because I like the extra vulnerability. I do have things to where the moment I hit them, everything around me becomes vulnerable, and then for 2 seconds, and then I just keep extending that vulnerability. I have it to where I have a chance to proc dazed off the vulnerability. I have a chance to proc stun off the dazed and the vulnerability. So where there's just a constant, just cycle of bad CC that's coming towards all this stuff. It's very common that when you're fighting a rather tough elite, that they're just constantly flopping on the ground. I just call it, they're doing the fish, and then whenever, you know, you're done beating on them, they just die, and they just never had a chance to hit you. It's kind of cool. I do just headlong jump into massive crowds with this group, and with this build, and then just come out on top. There's a lot of explosions, a lot of cool stuff going on, and yeah. All right, now I am not going with twisting blades. I honestly, there are good things for twisting blades. It's just I'm not a super huge fan of it, because it does give you big hits, but it's a 1.5 second time investment. And I would like to have all my damage as a big frontal shotgun blast. It just goes out, everything's vulnerable, everything's dazed, everything's stunned, everything's exploding. Just bam, charge into it, they die. That's the goal. I don't want to have to wait 1.5 seconds for my DPS. So we're going with Flurry, because Flurry hits like a truck if you build it up properly. Because if you just, I mean, it hits really, really hard. All right, and it not only hits... see, with this right here, twisting blades, it circles around you, and it actually, you know, it goes out, it impales them, and then it comes back, and it circles around you, and it hits everything once, and it hits it big, and it hits hard on that circle around. This right here hits 4 times. That's 4 chances to proc dazed, stun, vulnerability. That means that I'm just constantly just unleashing just loads of damage around me in a 360-degree circle. I'll explain how I get to that here in just a little bit. Now for this, I have this one right here. Just my vulnerability. Every time you hit a crowd control or vulnerable enemy, you're healed by 1% of your maximum life. And it just there's a lot of fights where my health just doesn't move, and these are tough fights as well. All right, and then we go to improved Flurry, which is if Flurry hits a vulnerable enemy, it will make all enemies hit with the cast vulnerable. Because while my initial vulnerable only lasts for 2 seconds, I just want to keep 100% uptime of vulnerable. It's very, very important in this build. All right, now dash. This right here is one that you actually could swap out. Is if you need shadow step or you know, that CC break as you get into the higher levels. I would recommend having that right there, because it'll just break the if you get crowd controlled, or you're frozen, or you're stunned, use that and you'll be able to get out of it. As of right now, there are some times where I'll put this down here on my bar and use it, but right now in some dungeons where you're just going through just grinding XP, it's really not required. But when you get into the Hell Tides, especially when your ones in the up north where they start freezing you and such, and just standing inside the chilled bit for even a half a second and you're frozen, Shadow Step is very important. And to replace Shadow Step, I would not get rid of Dash because Dash is good. I would actually get rid of Dark Shroud. Dark Shroud is good, but honestly, breaking the CC is better. Taking no damage versus taking less damage, no damage win every time. All right, so for Dash, I actually I have 1 point in this just because I just want it. I had an extra point put in there. I could actually take that point out if I needed to. And, oh yeah, just go back through the build. So up here, I only have 3 points up here. And then we have 6 points right here, of course, because this is a very close combat build. And then we've got maxed out Flurry, and then we've got points there. We come down here, I've got points in Concussive, just because because of this right here, critically striking a dazed enemy, they are knocked down for 0.5 seconds. And I'm making things dazed constantly, super fast, just a lot. All right, and then after knocking back or knocking down an enemy, which happens quite regularly, you gain 12% increased critical strike chance, which is very important. That critical strike chance builds up really fast. Now, in the lower 50 levels, I would actually recommend you do take Poison Trap just because of the knockdown. I've gotten to a point where I don't need Poison Trap to knock things down. It's not required. It's not necessary to throw it out there, wait the time, and then wait for things to step into it or, you know, have them knocked down. I'm just knocking them down without it. And I don't like the fact that, you know, because when I did levels 1 to 50 with Poison Trap, and it worked out really, really well. But once you start getting the items, you don't really need Poison Trap anymore just to knock things down, to crowd control, just to take control of everything. But in the lower levels, while you're leveling this build up, I would definitely recommend Poison Trap. But you will get to a point with this build where you're just like, yeah, get rid of the Poison Trap. We don't need it. We're doing so much more damage without it, and it works really well. All right, now for Dark Shroud, I've only got it like this because when I have at least 4 active Dark Shrouds, I gain +8 critical strike. It's because I've just been messing around with the build right now. Honestly, I could get rid of Dark Shroud, and it wouldn't really be that much, that big of a difference. All right, so this right here, Exploit, in this tree right here, in Subterfuge, I do have 3 in Agile, just because it reduces the chance of my dodge cooldown, because using a cooldown increases your dodge chance by 3%, because I use a lot of cooldowns on it. All right, and I love to be able to dodge. Like I said earlier, taking no damage is better than taking reduced damage. All right, so Exploit, you deal 6% increased damage to healthy and injured enemies. It works. It works okay. All right, now this one right here is you deal 9% increased damage to vulnerable. We want to stack as much vulnerable damage as we can because there's vulnerable damage and there's critical damage. And when you can stack both of those, then you get like a double crit. And it's amazing. You can see some really high numbers, and it's very, very cool. All right, so now down here in Imbuement, we're actually going with Shadow Imbuement. You can go with Poison Imbuement. I just like to watch things explode, and so it works out really, really well. So I've got Shadow Imbuement, and whenever you and deal 6. Your next 2 imbuable skills deal shadow damage and infect enemies for 6 seconds. Infected enemies explode on death, dealing 4,444 points of damage to all surrounding areas. They explode. They go pop. It's great. And then the next one I have Enhanced Shadow Imbuement. That's kind of required. And then Shadow Imbuement's primary explosion makes enemies vulnerable. Once again, we're stacking as much vulnerable as we can. All right, and then here we have Shadow Crash, which is shadow damage. Shadow damage has a 10% chance to stun for 0.6 seconds. Very important. You want to stack the stun, you want to stack the daze, you want to stack the knockdown, all of that, and I'm going. All right, consuming shadows. Each time you kill an enemy with shadow damage, you generate 30 energy. A lot of times you'll jump into a big crowd, and I'm kind of amazed that my energy just doesn't go down. It's really cool. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does happen, it feels good. All right, now down here in the ultimate skills, We've got up to 30% chance to gain 8 energy because we want as much energy as possible because we're just shotgun blasting everything in 30 degree or in a 360-degree angle around us with Flurry because it works really well. All right, and then right here, Trap Mastery, your Poison Trap and Death Trap activates. You gain 12% in critical strike chance against vulnerable and crowd control enemies. Well, everything within that area is going to be both vulnerable and crowd controlled. You're getting a lot of critical strike damage against those guys. It's really cool. Now, this right here, this is just your oh crap button. This is like, oh, hey, everything's a little bit far out. Let's just pull them in and let's just DPS everything down in a big, huge glob right in front of me. That's really all it's for. It's your oh crap button. It's not required for the DPS, but it does feel good when it triggers. All right. Now, Prime Poison Trap and, of course, Supreme Poison Trap. All right, which is, yeah, just kills an enemy and its cooldown is reduced by 10 seconds. Because, you know, it helps to have it up whenever you need it. Now, down here in the key passives, we're going Momentum because I like Momentum. I like taking less damage. I also, I mean, we're hitting a lot of stunned enemies. We're hitting a lot of dazed enemies. And we don't hit too many frozen enemies. I do have the boots. The boots aren't required. But it does happen every once in a while. But stunned and dazed, we're hitting them all the time. It is very common to have a 100% uptime on Momentum the moment combat starts. So you're always getting this. Increased energy regeneration, damage reduction, and increased movement speed. Now on Paragon stuff, once we get into it, honestly, my first goal was to unlock the board right here that has the ultimate skill, just because it was the only way I was able to get 25 strength for my exploit glyph. And the exploit glyph, it's not required in the lower levels, but once you get exploit glyph, you get into the really big game, and that's when I was able to actually ditch Poison Trap, and it helped out quite a bit. All right, so yeah, you get the glyph socket right here, or you start upgrading the exploit glyph. But yeah, the one with that actually has the no witnesses is the only one I was able to. Now, I didn't look super hard, but it was the only one at lower levels that I was able to get the extra additional bonus on the exploit glyph was for no witness. And then once you get that, it's just when you damage it in. When an enemy is damaged by you, they become vulnerable for 3 seconds, which just means we jump into a crowd and then bam, everything around us is vulnerable. Granted, it has a stacking bit, which is it can't happen more than every 20 seconds per enemy, but honestly, they're usually dead by the first 3 seconds. Matter of fact, they're usually dead on just bam, dead. And it's really cool. I'll show you here in just a sec. Now, there are times where you get a little bit over cocky with this build. You jump in, and you'll be fine, dead. But you'll get a really good feeling for when those moments are, and then when you should, you know, you go fine, and then you hit that moment where you're like, either I drop my death trap, or I die. And that's when you drop the death trap. It's your oh crap button. All right, now let's get into the build with the items. All right, now on the weapons really don't matter. They're just kind of stat sticks. Try to go for best in slot on these. Honestly, I've just been as much critical strike chance, as much vulnerability, and as much close combat. That's really what you're shooting for here. And make sure on your ranged weapon, you have 2 different types of ranged weapons. One that has vulnerable, one that has distant enemies. Up here at the very top. For the main bonus for the weapon, make sure you're getting a vulnerability one, because I went through about the first 40 levels of the game having a distant one, and then I switched over to vulnerable, and it really helps out quite a bit. But yeah, the things you're shooting for here on items is damage to either dazed, stunned, vulnerable, mostly vulnerable, and then critical strike hit chance and critical strike damage. Those are your primary stats that you're trying to go for in this build. Now, this one right here, what I have on my ranged weapon, and it's very important you either put this on your ranged weapon or your amulet, is Flurry. Imprinted Flurry is Flurry damages enemies in a circle around you and deals 16% increased damage, rogue only. This one right here makes it so where Flurry hits everything around you, and it's not just everything in a small, tight area. It's everything kind of in it's not medium range, but it's not short range, so it's somewhere in between that, and it does a lot of damage, especially if you spec for it right. Now for the boots, I actually only I'm actually kind of just trying these out right now as I go through a couple dungeons with this build right here for the Penitent Greaves. Honestly, this right here is my standard one just because it has 3 max evade charges, and when you hit a crowd-controlled enemy, there's a 46% chance that the crowd control effect spreads to other enemies, which is the dazed, stunned, chilled, all that. All right, and honestly, I think these boots are better. This one right here just automatically chills everything, which is technically a crowd control, so I'm trying to figure out, you know, which is better, if spreading out the stun is or is just having everything. And and now these leggings right here, these aren't really required. I just have them because they have a high shadow damage and dodge chance. And yeah, if you can find better pants, they're good. This one right here is if it hits a boss or player, Death Trap will continue to rearm itself until it kills an enemy. So if you get up against a pack of like 4 elites and 5 elites, and there's none of the small little guys in there, you throw out the Death Trap, and Death Trap will just keep resetting itself until all those elites die. It's pretty cool. Or until the first one dies. All right, now the Grasp of Shadow. Once again, this is another one. I have these because they generally have a rather high vulnerability damage and a 3 ranks to all core skills. I got a good roll on mine, which means that instead of like a 5, 6, or 7 rank of Flurry, we have a rank 8, which really helps out. All right, now this right here, dealing on my chest piece, it's dealing direct damage to a vulnerable enemy, has a 31% chance to daze them. Well, they're always vulnerable, so we have a 31% chance every time we hit one to daze it, which that is crowd control. And this one right here, I'm actually just kind of experimenting with this. This one right here is just really not an important one, but you get an extra Dark Shroud and it prevents more damage. All right, now on the necklace, now this is important to have on the necklace just because it gives you extra, is the barrier mod. It's just every 30 seconds, you hit an elite mob, you get a nice barrier that almost doubles your health, not quite. And this right here, Mother's Embrace. I haven't found anything good enough to replace this. This is what you get for beating the campaign. If a core skill hits 5 or more enemies, 35% of the resource cost is refunded. It actually works really well. Now, this right here actually helps us where when you're not proccing all that stuff, it's just if you hit 5 or more, and then you just stay up at max energy or close to max energy. Really good. Now, this right here is when you evade or shadow step, you leave behind stun grenades. And this one right here really worked in tandem with these boots that I had because I just had so many evades. And then if things just weren't proccing, just evade them. And then they're instantly stunned because throw a grenade out. It was really good. And then you can spread that stun around to everything, and then you just get the cycle really moving. Now, on the gems, for the most part, it's just I'm going with, for the most, just damage reduction while crowd controlled because it does happen, and when it does happen, it sucks that you're just standing there going, I'm dying. Yeah. So yeah, which is another reason why I would also go for Shadow Step if that's happening to you. And then on these, it's just maximum life because I like maximum life. And then all the weapon gems, they're all just against vulnerable. And on this right here, it's just all armor because we like to be able to tank. We like to be able to take hits. And yeah, we're only level 69 right now. But here, let me show you a few bits of us jumping in and beating the crap out of things. That was a tough room. Right, so that's the build, and yeah, I hope it helps you out. Honestly, if you're gonna use the build, I just hope you enjoy it. If you find any new things that actually work really well with it, then put them down below. I would be really, honestly, let's get a conversation going down there because I've really just been theory crafting as I go. I've been actually paying attention to a few different builds. I don't use very much of them. I just use it for, you know, trying to figure out exactly what they've learned about certain skills. And yeah, I went from there. But I really like Flurry Rogue, and it's a very tanky build. I'm only level 69, about to hit level 70 here soon. And yeah, at least on this guy. And yeah, I hope it helps you out. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button down below. If you're new around here, subscribe. And until next time, this is Flinger Foo. Take it easy, everybody.